Hello, my name's Elise and I am a recent college graduate and a full-time dessert blogger. I specialize in really easy, really quick, approachable but indulgent recipes, all the classics. And today I want to show you how to make my bakery style chocolate chip cookies. These are my go-to cookies. I was searching for a really thick, really soft and chewy cookie, not that cakey, kind of crumbly cookie. And these are them. After so many tests and so many years of baking, these are truly the best cookies ever. Something that I love about these cookies is that they are literally no fuss. They do not require a mixer. You can use just a whisk and a spatula. You could probably just use a spoon if you needed. They do not require any chill time, meaning you do not have to pop the cookie dough or the cookie dough balls in the fridge before baking. And these are ready in literally 20 minutes. So let's get started. All right, so like I said, this recipe is no fuss. You're gonna need very few materials. Just grab a large bowl, a whisk and a spatula, or just a spoon. And then you'll need a baking sheet lined with parchment paper. I like lining my baking sheets with parchment paper because it makes cleanup so much easier and makes sure that the cookies do not stick to the pan, which is the worst ever. All right, let's dive into these ingredients. Luckily, they are pretty simple things that most people already have on hand. You're gonna start with some granulated sugar. That's just plain white sugar. You'll also need light brown sugar. You're gonna need vanilla extract. Even though these are chocolate cookies, vanilla rounds out the flavor. You're gonna need a room temperature egg. It's super important that it's at room temperature. You can leave it out for a couple hours before baking or pop it in a bowl of warm water for a couple minutes to get that to room temperature to help the batter come together smoothly. You're gonna need butter. We're gonna melt this down, which means that you have a butter flavor in every single bite and makes it so that it's a no mixer recipe. Then you're going to need baking powder, baking soda, and salt. Make sure that you do not interchange baking soda and baking powder. You're going to need both of them and you're going to need to measure them properly with real teaspoons, not just a look of the eye of your spoon. You are also going to need flour. Make sure to measure this properly. I recommend doing so with a kitchen scale. They're like $10 on Amazon. I will link the one that I use in the description. But if you do not have a kitchen scale, use a spoon to measure the flour into your measuring cup and then use a knife to sweep across the top to level it. That way you don't pack the flour into your cups and create really dry and dense cookies. And last but not least, you are going to need chocolate chips. I use a mixture of dark chocolate chips, semi-sweet chocolate chips, and mini chocolate chips because I think it adds a cool look and great flavor. So with that, let's get started into actually making the bakery cookies. All right, we are going to start by melting our butter. I like to chop the butter into squares. All right, and then I pop these little squares in the microwave and heat them usually about 30 seconds, stir, and then another 30 seconds, and usually they're good to go. So now that butter is melted down and we are gonna pour all of our wet ingredients into the bowl. That's our butter, our granulated sugar, light brown sugar, vanilla extract, and our egg. And we will whisk that all together until it's smooth. It should look sort of like a paste that pulls just like that. All right, and now we're gonna add our dry ingredients, which would be the flour and then the baking soda, baking powder, and salt. So I'm gonna do the flour first and then sprinkle the leavening agents and salt on next. And we're gonna just use a spatula to fold the dry ingredients into the wet. It should just look like this. You can also use a spoon to do this. You can use a spoon for the whole thing. Usually about this point when the dry ingredients are starting to incorporate but are not fully incorporated is when I like to add the chocolate chips. Look at these babies. And look, as you can see, you've got 3 different sizes, which I think is super fun. And we'll fold those in. You might spill a couple, oops. I mean, look at that dough. Are you kidding me? Come on. Don't you just want to swim in that? And I'm not saying to do it, but I'm also saying not to not. Maybe test the cookie dough. Who knows? If you remember, these are bakery style cookies, meaning they are pretty big. We are gonna use a 1/4 cup measuring, which is about 65 to 70 grams if you're using a cute little kitchen scale, per dough ball. Yeah, you heard that. So here is what one of my dough balls looks like. Again, pretty big, but something that I like to do to make them even more bakery style is I like to roll the dough balls in extra chocolate chips. Again, another mixture of mini, semi-sweet, and dark. You can do whatever you want, but that's just what I do. You can totally skip this step if you'd like, but I think it adds a really cool look to the cookies once they are baked, and I can show you the difference between one that has chocolate chips on top and one that doesn't. All you do, just roll it in the bowl, kind of stick it in, and boom, there you go. So this is what my tray looks like before going in the oven. Again, they're all topped with extra chocolate chips. So these will be in the oven for about 9 to 11 minutes until the tops start to look pale in color and the edges are starting to turn golden brown. They'll have a slight shininess to the top, and I'll show you what that looks like when they come out. So in they go at 350, 9 to 11 minutes, or until those cues that I just mentioned are seen. And while those are baking, if you have another sheet pan, you can get going on making the next round of cookies with the batter that you have left. As the dough begins to sit, it might start to kind of dry out a little bit. All you need to do is just kind of work it in your hands for a second, and it should be good to go and easy to roll in those chocolate chips if you choose. All right, now these are looking done to me. They've got nice firm edges. They have cracks in the top. I'm not sure if you can see that, and around the edges. And they do not look super duper soft. This is totally unnecessary, but something that I like to do when the cookies come out is use a knife to push the edges to be a little bit more round, to really make that circle shape. Again, totally not necessary, and luckily these cookies do a pretty good job, I feel like, consistently coming out pretty round. But if there are any edges that you want to play around with, go for it. Highly recommend the back of a knife. Especially if you're still getting used to baking, or this is your first time making this recipe in your oven, I would recommend removing the cookies from the sheet pan about 2 minutes after removing them from the oven and potentially rounding those edges a little bit, because the cookies will continue to cook as they cool, and especially if they're on the pan, they have more heat, allowing them to have more of a potential of overcooking, meaning that they're a little bit drier, denser than that soft, chewy texture we're looking for. Like I said, remove them from the pan after 2 minutes if this is your first time. If not, I think you can leave them on the pan. That's at least what I do to fully cool and set. They're gonna seem really soft, but don't worry, they will firm up as they cool, but not too much to the point where they're not chewy and soft. All right, so I just pulled my second tray out of the oven, and I wanted to show you the difference between cookies that are rolled in those extra chocolate chips and cookies that are not. You take a look at this. These are all rolled in the chocolate chips, and this one right here, not. Totally fine, still gonna be a gorgeous and delicious cookie, but I think for the bakery style cookies, I usually like to add those extra chocolate chips on top, even if it's just a few, because I think it really spices it up. But seriously, look at these. Are you kidding? Oh, they are so thick, they're so chewy, they're so fudgy, and so chocolatey. I promise these are gonna be a staple in your kitchen. Bring them anywhere and they will impress anyone, I promise. And I'm gonna open up the cookie for you and show you. Look at that. Well, that is all for today, friends. I hope you enjoyed this video and got some extra tips and tricks on how to master these cookies in your kitchen. Again, the full recipe is linked in the description on my website, or you can type Sweets by Elise Bakery chocolate chip cookies into your web browser and they will show up. If you make this recipe, please let me know, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more recipes and fun baking related content. Have a great day and happy baking.